Welcome to Shortcut to Manuscript. This is Donald Potter, and I'll go down here. You can see my name. I first started working on this in 2013 and done some revision in 2017. My website is www.donpotter.net. This is a more advanced website, and www.blendphonics.org is a simpler website, a little easier to get around in and find what you want. And this is one of two presentations. This is going to be a longer presentation. It's not a presentation for kids. This is for teachers, parents, administrators, people that are just interested in the best kind of handwriting. It's a direct path to fluent manuscript handwriting, and we want to emphasize fluent. One of the main features of my program is that there is no trace and copy, and we'll be studying why that is. So I like to make the claim that perhaps this is one of the best manuscript handwriting programs, and yet it's free. I put it on my website totally free, and I just want to help people with their handwriting. So you say, well, how can you have a free program and you're claiming maybe that it's as good as or better than some of the expensive handwriting programs that school districts and parents can buy? Well, yes, I do. And the reason is simply not so much because what I do teach, but what I don't teach, and that is trace and copy. And we're going to be seeing the reasons for that as we go along. Now, what I really want, like what I expect, what I really want to happen with this video is this. I want you to go down to the comment section on the YouTube down below my presentation here video, and there's going to be a link to this document right here, Shortcut to Manuscript. And the fundamental purpose, besides introducing you to some of the basic principles of handwriting, good handwriting, fluent handwriting, is to get you to click on this document, because this document contains, and let me go to the contents page here, the next page. By the way, permission is granted for reduplication and free usage for nonprofit educational purposes. Anybody wants to can copy this and use it. This is a table of contents, and this is what we're going to be looking at. The second video is going to be a demonstration, and it's going to be done by one of my students. I believe a new third grade student that came to me that needed help with handwriting. I've taught this to a lot of kids, and often in as little as an hour or two, you see a tremendous improvement in their handwriting. It can be taught to whole classes. It can be taught to individuals. It's really easy to teach. Now, we're going to be looking at, I'm not going to cover all this on this particular video. I would like you to click on that link down there and read this. Either read it online, make a copy of it. It's just a simple PDF file. We're going to be looking at position and technique. We have a little preface here. How to hold a pencil and paper, general rules, formation of letters, some words of wisdom from Romualdus Spalding, whose method I taught years ago. And this particular handwriting method is basically what I learned from her in a video that she made that I watched it. I don't know where the video, I've not been able to find that video online, but it would be great if we could find it. Some practice words for developing fluency. That's just something I added. We have pangrams, which are sentences that use all the letters of the alphabet, and they are great, especially for timing, seeing how fast students can write. And I have some typical rates there. We also are going to later look at teaching techniques for teaching numbers. There's a little note from myself, kind of historical. This is really important, and notice that we've got several pages here. This is Dr. Marilyn Jagger Adams on handwriting, and she came out a few years ago with her own handwriting program, which is basically the same as this one. That's basically a coincidence there, but she teaches, and most programs teach according to the strokes. I actually go straight through the alphabet, A, B, C, D, and I find that effective. And I want my kids to come out being able to write the alphabet from A to Z fluently even beautiful letters, even with their eyes closed. We have some valuable suggestions from Mary Pesci here, and we're going to look at that just a little bit. And Pam Versfield has published an awesome little one-page deal on the internet about how the brain controls handwriting. And I want us to look at that. So as we go down, let's see. I'm not going to read all this here. I like you to read this yourself. It's all really important information. This is kind of like, I call this the preface here. I'm making this big instead of showing the whole page so that you can see, read with me. If I made it where you saw the whole page, it'd be hard to read. Here's positioning techniques. Again, we're going to be looking at some of that. And you can read that, how to hold a paper. You can do that yourself. Paper, the kind of paper. Oh, here we go. This is a picture, let me get it up here, that I really like. I always teach a tripod grip, and you can see that you have the index finger on top, just on the other side of the wood. You want this web here because it allows for more movement of the hand. The paper should be angled to the right for left-handers, and for right-handers, it should be angled to the left, not straight on the page. By the way, they shouldn't be writing in a big notebook because the notebook doesn't allow them to put the paper down properly. I do a lot of my teaching with the paper that you buy at the dollar store and get wide line paper. And again, I'm not going to go into that too much, but this tripod grip is good. Even 2 fingers on top, which is quite common, limits your writing ability. I use fountain pens with a lot of my kids. They're very inexpensive on the internet, and I've got dozens of them in my classroom. Now, I'm going to skip to the end. I'm going to skip a little further here. Some statements I want us to look at. And we're going to come back and look at all that in just a minute. But what I want us to see is some statements here. Here's the first one by Marilyn Jagger Adams. And I want you to, again, go to the bottom and run this thing off. This is the main reason I'm going through this, is to motivate you to get this document, sit down at your leisure, take time, read it, let it sink in, because it will revolutionize your understanding of how to teach reading. Marilyn Jagger Adams says, both theory and data suggest that instruction on neither the sounds of the letters nor the recognition of whole words should be earnestly undertaken until children have become confident and quick at recognizing individual letters. I consider that the most valuable sentence, one of the most valuable sentences in her it's from her 1990 Beginning to Read, Thinking and Learning About Print, abbreviated BTR. Read that sentence several times. She also says, while every aspect of reading growth depends on speed and accuracy of letter perception, learning to recognize and discriminate printed letters is just too big, too hard, and too fuzzy a task to master incidentally. You have to teach handwriting. You cannot give a student a piece of paper with some letters on it and tell them to trace it and think you're teaching handwriting. You're not doing anything. And that's exactly, I actually got into this when I first read an article in 2008 by Bob Rose called Forget the Bell Curve. And he claimed that if a kindergartner could write the alphabet at 40 letters a minute, they could learn to read. And I thought, well, I guess every kindergartner can do that. So I started testing literally 100, 200 kids since 2008. And I asked them to write the alphabet and I time them. I rarely get a kid that can write the alphabet at more than 10 to 13 letters a minute. And then there's lots of mistakes. And their letter formation is so funky that it's obvious that they've received no direct instruction in handwriting. I'm not talking about just all the students that come to me from my own district. I'm talking about private schools. I'm talking about charter schools. It makes no difference. I have yet to get a single student, I'm not exaggerating, I have yet to get one single student that can write the alphabet fluently. And yet, surprisingly, within a few weeks, I can have them writing fluently with this method that I'm offering you for free. Notice she says, Succulently, she says, what a waste of time to correct the pronunciation of a letter, sound, or word if the child's confusion was really in the visual identity of the letter. She's also written another book called ABC, came out in 2013, called ABC Fundamentals. And she claims that studies have shown that most first graders do not know the alphabet at the end of first grade. I know that sounds hard to believe. Again, tremendous amount of information here from her book. I'm going to skip down through all of this. It's tremendously valuable information. She talks about parallel distributed processing. You have to read her book to get into all that. This end note is extremely important. She says it's worth taking time to watch individual students copying words. Some persist in looking at words to be copied, writing down one single letter and then looking back for the next letter. With respect to orthographic, that's spelling, learning, however, the benefits of copying are expected to come from looking at the text to be copied, remembering the whole word or syllable, and writing down before looking back to one spelling or to get the next word or syllable to be copied. Now, let me simply say that when students come to me and I'm teaching them spelling, when I write a spelling word, they often have to copy one letter, look down, write it, look up, then the next letter, the next letter, and the next letter. The reason is because they're not fluent or secure in their letter writing, so they can't benefit from the spelling instruction. Once they get their handwriting speed and the connection with the letters firm, then they can look at a whole word or at a syllable and copy it, whole word and copy it, and they eventually get where they can copy whole sentences. If you have a student that's copying one letter at a time, you got a problem, and the problem comes because of the way that they were taught the alphabet. And I have a lot of quotes from Miss Adams's book, which I highly recommend that anybody buy. But again, I'm not going to take time to read this. What I want to do is I want you to go to the bottom and click on this document. June Brown, in her guide to Lust Read, had some pretty interesting things to say. She claims that if a student knows the alphabet, can see normally and button close, that your child can and will learn to read. And she says that everyone that learned the alphabet, she calls it total recall of the alphabet. Again, I'm not going to labor that, but it's an interesting book that she wrote there. It's not in print anymore. Mary Pesci, a dear friend of mine, by the way, and I really like using her books to teach. She has developed some old-fashioned basal readers, and I believe they're really excellent for teaching ESL. But anyway, she says here, listen carefully what she says. While the child is learning to recognize the letters of the alphabet, it's important that he learn to write the letters because there's a correlation between letter writing and reading. Lack of ability in one area will have its effect in another. That's simple but a very profound statement. And again, she says, it is no coincidence that most, and I'm reading the italics here, most children with reading deficiencies have the common characteristic of scrambled and illegible handwriting. Yes, there's a connection between the two. Now, Miss Pesci recommends using continuous strokes, and that's the way I teach. I don't teach ball and stick, and we're going to see how that we do that. The only commercial, there's several good commercial programs out. Probably the best is the Peterson handwriting, and I've learned a lot from Randy Nelson, and in fact, a lot of what I do in my classroom every day, whether in cursive or in manuscript, is from things that I learned from him over the years. And I've put 3 links to his website that I recommend. And I do recommend, if you want to spend some money, to get his program. I approve of it 100%. May I say, maybe it's the one program out there that's better than this one here. Pressing on. Now I'm going to read this page. And We're 14 minutes, so I'm sure we're going to go over half an hour with this video. But again, this is for teachers. This is for parents. This is not a video for children. That video is coming up. It's going to be a short video, and it's going to be a powerful video because we're going to teach proper pencil grip. We're going to teach paper placement. We're going to teach exactly how to write the strokes and everything. And I'm going to have I believe one of my third grade boys is going to teach that. Understanding how the brain controls drawing and handwriting. Read this page. I'm telling you, this is profound. This is up-to-date, cutting-edge information. And this is why that we don't use trace and copy. Experienced handwriters can write a sentence without needing visual guidance. That is because fluent, efficient handwriting is produced with minimal need for visual feedback. And take a look at that right there. Visual feedback. Minimal need for visual feedback. Visual monitoring of handwriting is important for positioning of handwriting on the page and keeping the writing in a straight line, but not for writing the letters themselves. Letters are formed by a series of small movements called strokes. In a minute, we're going to go through my whole program here and look at the strokes. The pattern of strokes needed to form a letter are stored in the brain as a motor plan. It's like a set of blueprints in the brain that the mind follows automatically. The motor plans are also referred to in the literature as representations. For letters containing information about the relative length, direction, and sequence of strokes needed to form each letter. Well learned, let me emphasize that. Well learned. We call it overlearning sometimes. This is where drill comes in. Well-learned motor plans control the direction and sequence of strokes without the need for feedback for completing the movements with reasonable accuracy. Handwriting movements occur too fast to rely on feedback for controlling each letter. The movements or strokes are used to form letters are pre-planned and are very rapid. In fact, the speed of fluid handwriting is so fast that they're completed before any information from the muscle or the vision reaches the brain. Think about that. That's why when somebody's writing a word, if you move the page from underneath of them really, really fast, they'll actually go ahead and finish. They can't even stop. They'll go ahead and finish what they were writing. In fluent handwriting, each letter is pre-planned and the movements carried out without the need for visual monitoring or feedback from the muscles. In fact, research has shown that after a few months of handwriting, young children not only pre-plan letters, but have started to pre-plan whole syllables. The equivalence factor, that is to say, big writing or small writing uses the same motor plan. And I recommend working with big before the small and doing it with air writing, that is writing with a hand in the air or with chalk in large letters on a chalkboard. Learning, by the way, a chalkboard is better than a whiteboard because of the kinesthetic feedback. Learning to print letters is all about learning the motor plan for the letter. Notice that it's all about learning motor plan for the letter, and we're going to show you exactly how to do that in the later part of this video. Learning to write a letter is a process of learning the relative length, direction and sequence of strokes that form the letter and storing this information in the brain as a motor plan for the letter. When a letter is well learned, seeing an example of the letter, that's a grapheme, or hearing the letter phoneme will call up the motor plan for writing the letter. In other words, when you say A, the motor plan for A will come up. If you say A, that's the phoneme or one of the phonemes for A, the motor plan will come up. With repeated practice, the link between seeing, hearing, or thinking about a letter becomes more direct, efficient, and faster and requires no attention. The learner who acquires the motor plan for a letter, they are able to write without hesitation. That is, when the learners have got the motor plan, they'll be able to write the letter. Notice I said without hesitation. All these kids, hundreds, coming to me, taking my test, after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in our classrooms, are unable to write the letters without hesitation. Many of them go ABC, they write ABC, and they have to go back all the way to the beginning to remember what the next letter is. Folks, this should not be. This does not happen with my students. It should not happen with your students. Excuse me for preaching, but I sometimes have to get on my soapbox because a lot of the tutoring that I'm doing, I should not have to be doing. It should have been done in the classrooms, and it could have been done very easily, and it can be done with this program right here, right? Just what you got in front of you. Please click on the link at the bottom down there. When learners have acquired the, learners who have not developed a direct link between letter and motor plan will hesitate before writing a letter. So those are corollaries there. Tracing letters inhibits the motor plan, and this right here I want to emphasize. This is why I say that my free program may be better than all of those way more expensive programs that require trace and copy. That is, trace it and then write the letter. Tracing letters or writing letters guided by an outline of the letter can only be done with any degree of accuracy by using visual monitoring of the movement of the pencil tip. Visual monitoring. To do this, the child uses a series of short strokes to make sure that the line they are drawing stays on the line or between the lines on the page. Notice short strokes. My friend Randy Nelson has a huge amount of information on this. You watch his videos and either buy use my free program if you want, or buy his program, which by the way is extremely inexpensive. And the workbooks can be, there's no workbooks. He has a book, but it's for finger tracing. You can buy one set for your classroom and use it for the next 10 years if you want to. The last sentence is the punchline, okay? This has two consequences. Everything that we've read above, especially about tracing letters and so on. Children get into the habit of using visual monitoring vision to monitor their actions, and they do not learn the motor plan for the letter. Let me underline this. Tracing is a bad idea. B-A-D, bad idea, and should be banned from handwriting programs. Look at your handwriting program at your school has. Does it have workbooks that require tracing? If it does, at least according to this lady and my understanding, it's not too strong to say they should be banned. I've actually taught some of those programs without the workbooks, all right, because I've learned the strokes that they use. All right, now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. I hope by now you've gone down there and clicked on that link. We're going back and we're going to go through the letters one at a time. I'm guessing this will take us about 10 to 15 minutes. Where are we at here? Okay. Detailed instruction for teaching lowercase manuscript letters. By the way, I can't possibly teach this with my hand because I broke my hand, broke my wrist in a mountain bike accident. So I can't use my right hand to do this. But I'm going to get one of my students here, maybe the next week or two. General rules: all letters set on the baseline, and the baseline is this line right down here. Notice we do not use a midline with this. For one thing, that's kind of a visual emphasis, so we skip that altogether. Letters or parts of letters are two sizes of either tall or short. Tall letters or tall parts reach to the line above but do not touch it. Notice here this line's almost there but not quite. Short letters or short parts are half as high as tall letters. Manuscript letters are made from the clock face or parts of it and straight lines. Marilyn Adams in her program uses the clock face. There's quite a few programs, even some cursive programs I've noticed. Now the reason and most of them, Miss Adams and Miss Spalding, when she did this, they put them in they teach this in the order of strokes. So they may start with all the letters that start at 2 o'clock or whatever. I go right straight through the alphabet, and I have a really good reason for doing this. I want the kids, as soon as possible, to be able to write all the letters of the alphabet from A to Z. And I want them to know those letters in that order. I want them to know the letter names. At first, I'm not that interested in the letter sounds. I'm interested in the letter names. So when you say a letter, they can write it instantly. And then when we use my phonics program, which, by the way, is Blend Phonics, extremely inexpensive. You can get my Blend Phonics lessons and stories. Well, Blend Phonics, you can order it off the internet for $8. If you don't want to pay for it, you can get it for free off my www.blendphonics.org website. And I've been too rich most of my life, and I really like giving things away, so it's pretty hard. And the reason I put this in my books in CreateSpace, had CreateSpace publish them, sell them on Amazon, is just to make them available to more people than would get them with my my free program. So anyway, this is all the strokes you need. You got a short stroke. We start at 2 o'clock on the circle. We have a short stroke from the middle. We have a tall stroke not quite touching. Here we have a long stroke that goes underneath, or a short stroke with or a long stroke with a short part. We have a line in the direction we write, a vertical line, and then we have a horizontal line in the direction we write. We never say left and right with this program. That is very confusing to little kids, and in particular kids with dyslexia. And you can see here how we have a clock face. We start 2 o'clock. When I teach the kids, the first thing I do is I draw a clock face, I draw this, and I teach all the strokes. Before I teach any letter, I teach all the strokes. I have them write all the strokes. And you get an idea. The points we use most often are 2, 4, 8, and 10. We also do 9 for the E. So a C, we just simply go from 2 o'clock around to 4 o'clock. Okay, now let's look at the individual letters, and let's see how fast I can go through these without going too fast for you. Formation of the lowercase letters presented in alphabetic order for fluency development. Here's what the teacher says, and I'm going to just kind of use my little deal right here. Let's see, maybe I can put a hand on there. It may make it easier for you to see. Okay, first of all, the letter A is a short letter. Short letters fill the space halfway up to the line above. Start far enough from the edge of the paper to make the clock face. So you can't start over here. You're going to have to start over here to stay on the page. Start at 2 o'clock, go up around to 2, all the way around to 2 o'clock, and without lifting the pencil, pull a line straight down to the baseline. Don't start at 12 o'clock. If you go all the way from 12 to 12 and draw a line, you got a line in the middle. That don't work. Doesn't work, excuse me. So we're going to go all, by the way, we don't put tails on any of these letters. I think it's much easier for the kids to learn the straight sound, straight letter. And these were actually developed to move in with an eye on going into cursive. But still, I don't put the letters on the end. Don't care for that. That's the Danelian. I don't have anything. I taught it for 3 years. It worked. But again, that was a lot of trace and copy, and we don't want to do any trace and copy. So the first letter, I draw it on the board or use my, now we got those projector document cameras. Anyway, show the kids how to form the letter, and you'll be amazed at how kids that have terrible, terrible letters just within a few minutes start writing beautiful A's on the page. And again, you can run off the paper at the end of this document to use if you want to. Letter B. Here we go. What do you say? The letter B is a tall letter with a short part. It starts at the top with a line. Start just below the line above and pull the pencil down to the baseline. And without lifting the pencil, go back up almost halfway. So let me show you how you're going to do that. You're going to go down. Then you're going to go about halfway up to at a point that's 10 o'clock on the circle. And you're going to go all the way around to 8 o'clock. I also want you to notice that the B forms starts with a line. And if you look in the mirror and you say B, make the B sound, B, B, the voice bilabial, B sound. You'll notice that your lips make a line. Now that's really important because 90% of the kids come to me for tutoring. 90%, maybe closer to 100%, start the D with a line just like they do the B. And that's not in any handwriting program I've ever seen, which is why I have come to the conclusion that the students come to me for tutoring have not been taught any handwriting. They've been given a piece of paper and told to trace the letter, but they've not been told where to start. And this program, I tell you, it's just this simple little thing right here is revolutionary. My kids do not confuse the B and the D. Even kids that have supposed to have dyslexia come to me all confused. The minute I show them how that the B starts with a line, and we'll show them in a minute here how the D starts with a letter, they're automatically able to solve that problem. I'm just staggered that kids come to me with that problem, and it's due to the fact that they write the letter on the line. The motor plan they got in their head that they made up themselves has got them thoroughly confused. Let's see, you can read the little deal right there that's got some information. Let's press on. C, again, the purpose of this video is to get you to click on that link down at the bottom of this page. It will take you right straight to this manuscript. This manuscript on how to teach manuscript. The letter C is a short letter. It starts just far enough from the edge of the paper to make a clock. Begin at 2, go up and around the clock, and stop at 4 o'clock. And here you're just teaching basically the letter name, but of course it has 2 sounds, which you'll study in your phonics program. And may I recommend my Reading Made Easy with Blend Phonics is an infallible way to teach all students to read in 4 short months. Now we have the D. The letter D is a short letter with a tall part. Start at 2 o'clock, that's right here. To make a short part, go up and around the clock till 2 o'clock. Go straight up to the line above, but don't touch it, and pull a straight line down to the baseline. This is all done without lifting a pencil. Tall parts are twice the height of short parts. Now notice that the D now starts with a circle. Have the students look in a mirror at their lips, and they'll see that when you go make the D sound, D, that the lips, okay, so maybe it's a little bit like a square, but look, you can use your imagination. Kids get this right off. It makes a D sound. So whenever they're reading, they come to a D or a B and they say, "What's that letter, Mr. Potter?" I say, "Look at your lips." "Oh, it starts with a circle. That's going to be the D." Right. And you solve that problem. I actually had a boy that repeated first grade, and his parents spent $8,000 at Sylvan, which is probably a good program. I was just talking about one student. He came to me and he didn't know a B and a D, and I taught him in 5 minutes. And he actually went from first grade to 4th grade over just some summer tutoring. Amazing. I use Blend Phonics, of course. All right, letter E is a short letter. It starts with a straight line at 9 o'clock, okay? We go over to 3 o'clock, and then without lifting the pencil, continue up and around the clock from 3 to 3 and stop at 4. Notice that the E is the only letter in which a line is made in reference to the clock face. And I'd like to mention, whenever a letter starts with a line, you put it close to the letter in front. I forgot to mention that with the B. That's one of the rules. Again, I'm in a hurry to get you through this. F is a tall letter. It starts below the line at 2 o'clock. Notice we got a circle here. We start 2 o'clock up to 10 o'clock without touching the line. And then we pull a straight line to the baseline. We lift and put a tiny cross in the direction we write. The cross is placed just above the middle. The direction we write. Do not say to the right. Say the direction that we write. And this is very important because, let me notice here. The left-handed child's normal direction for using his and her hand is away from the body, to the left. Explain this to the child. Then teach the child from the start to write that writing English requires that he or she make all the horizontal lines go in the direction in which we write. This training can save students from developing dyslexic tendencies. That comes from Romalda Spalding, and I believe that she's actually quite correct in that. The letter G, going straight through the alphabet. It's a short letter. Start at 2, go up and around the clock, all the way up to 2 o'clock, make a line down to the baseline, and notice we rounded from 4 o'clock around to 8 o'clock. It's a short letter, and we should be able to put a short letter underneath of it without touching it on the line. Next we have the H, is a tall letter with a short part. It starts at the top with a line, start just below the line above, pull a line to the baseline, and without lifting the pencil, go back up almost halfway, and going in the direction we write, make a short round part. Start from 10 over to 2, and then we draw a line down to the base. So you can see how we're using the clock face. The letter I is a short letter. It starts at the top, going down. The dot is made last by setting the pencil above the letter and then taking it off. And I want to make a comment here. I get countless students come to me, make the I going up. And I'm sorry, but I have to look at the parent and I have to tell them the truth. Your student has received no handwriting instruction. And please don't tell me, well, the student might not have been paying attention. The teachers have those students in a classroom literally hundreds and thousands of hours. Surely sometime in there they got away from their computer long enough to teach them how to make an I by drawing the line from the top to the bottom. That's the correct and the only correct way to do it, and we owe it to our students to teach them correctly. But again, if you just give them a piece of paper and tell them to copy it, they're generally going to go from the bottom to the top. So they're all going to do that. And they all do that when they come to me, and they all quit doing it when they come to me. The letter I is a short letter. It starts at the top. The dot is, sorry about that. The letter K, no, wait a minute. J. Here we go. Is a short letter. It goes below the baseline. Since it begins with a line, it starts at the top. It goes down the same distance below as the short part goes above. The bottom part is rounded from 4 o'clock, you can see, over to 8 o'clock, and you put the dot on last. And again, I've had a lot of kids draw the dot and then draw the letter. More evidence that they weren't taught. The letter K is a tall letter and starts at the top. The second part is separate. It starts at the top, going in and out the same distance. The letter L is a tall line. It starts at the top. Notice, don't quite touch the line, and sets on the base line. M is a short letter. It begins with a line, comes down. It starts at the top and is drawn straight down to the baseline. Retrace from the top and around on the clock from 10 to 2. Then down, continue by making a straight line to the baseline, retrace to the top of the line, round again from 10 to 2 on the clock, and finish with a straight line which ends at the baseline. And again, I get countless students that either don't put the line at all, they just go around like 2 humps, or they go up instead of going down. So they go up and then they go over. Incorrect. The letter N is a short letter. Repeat the directions for making the first part of the M. That's easy enough. O, we're moving on pretty fast here. The letter O is a short letter. Notice it starts at 2 o'clock. Again, most kids will start at 12. It should start at 2 o'clock. It goes up and around and closes at the 2. Make it set on the line. And again, you'll have students put them above the line, below the line. Start them out right, and they'll do it right. And they'll be writing beautiful manuscript. Letter P is a short letter. It starts with a line and therefore sets close to the next letter in front of it. The line starts at the top and goes the same distance below the baseline as the short part goes above it. Retrace from this line. Now notice, retrace means go down. Don't pick your pencil up, but rather go up and then around. This will help when they learn cursive later. Retrace from the top, and you go from 10 o'clock all the way around to 8 o'clock on the clock. Q is kind of similar. The letter Q is a short letter. By the way, the kids confuse these all the time. The Q is a short letter. It starts at 2 o'clock and then we go up and around to 2 o'clock, and then without lifting the pencil, make a straight line below the baseline, and then draw a tiny flag in the direction we write. If some people prefer to actually put a curved line there, that's okay, if that's what your program or whatever you do does. The letter R is a short letter. It starts at the top. I get countless students that draw the R starting at the bottom. It's wrong. Surely their teachers didn't show them that. You know what we got now? We got a generation of teachers, bless their heart, that didn't even get handwriting when they were in school. And as teachers, they're not getting it in college. And then they're given even if they're given a handwriting book, which many aren't, even if they are given a handwriting book, some of them just pass it out and tell the kids to copy it and put on their lesson plans. You haven't taught, Romualdus Spalding said, until the students have learned. The letter R is a short letter. It starts at the top. Make a short line to the baseline, retrace the top, and go around from 10 to 2. S, short letter, it starts at 2 o'clock, goes around to 10 o'clock, slides across to 4, which is below the 2, and then back around to 8, which is below the 10. And boy, you can have kids writing some beautiful, beautiful S's. Sometimes S's get really sloppy. I don't accept sloppy work. I hope you don't either. The letter T is a tall letter. It begins at the top and it goes down. The cross is small and drawn just above the center. Notice in the direction we write. Make sure they do not retrace backwards. You want dyslexia, let them, but if you don't want them to have dyslexia, make sure that they're going that way. If you teach this at the very first, you don't have to correct it. I'm having to correct this, and kids come to me all the time. The letter U is a short letter, which starts with a line at the top. Bring the line almost to the baseline, and then you go from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Continue up and then retrace with a line to the baseline. V is a short letter. It starts with a line, and therefore it starts at the top and sets close to the letter in front. The line slants in the direction we write. Finish without lifting the pencil. So it's going to be one stroke. W. Letter W is a short letter. The instructions are the same as for the V, except repeat for the second half of the letter. Let's move on. The letter X is a short letter. It starts with a line which starts at the top, right here, sits close to the letter in front of it, because it starts with a line, and slants in the direction we write. It crosses, starts at the top, and goes through the middle of the letter. So you're going to go this way first, this way second. Make sure all children write the letters F, T, X before putting on their crosses. The Y is a short letter. Start at the top with a straight line, round from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Then you're going to go up with a straight line and then straight down the same distance below as the short part went above. The bottom, that's supposed to be went there, so I will go back and correct that. When you click that link, that's going to be right, because I can change this stuff in a heartbeat. I'm my own webmaster. I run the whole thing from top. So anyway, I take all the blame for any of the problems too. But the bottom part is rounded from 4 to 8 on the clock. This form for the lowercase y is taught in anticipation for teaching cursive instead of the 2-line form. Sometimes kids coming from schools that make the Y with 2 lines, I will teach that. So you just take your pick there. I prefer this because this is going to turn into easy cursive. The letter Z is a short letter. It starts with a line. Therefore, it sets close to the preceding letter to the top line is made in the direction we write without taking the pencil off the paper. Make a slant to the base line at the point under the beginning of the top line, and finish with a line drawn in the direction we write. The top and bottom should be parallel. Oh boy, do I get a lot of kids that draw this backwards. If you tell them start with a line in the direction we write, you won't have that problem. But teachers must not be doing that, because I'm having to correct that. Here, just for classification's sake, you have all the letters that start with a 2. These are all the letters that start with a line. And then here I actually just wrote some for you so you could see how they look. And again, I prefer to instead of teaching it by the stroke, I prefer to teach it in alphabetical order. And when I get done, then I already know the alphabetical order. So to me, here's some information from Miss Spalding. We've actually gone through a lot of this. I also have to mention Diane Hamburger King. Wow, she got a lot of awesome stuff out there. And her keyboarding, kids should not be on a computer, I think, composing until they've learned how to touch type, but you don't see that much either. And again, I'm putting a little plug for my shortcut to cursive. You can click on that. Pressing on. Okay, uppercase. I do want to look at this a little bit. Notice how this follows the same idea. The letters that start at 2 o'clock, 2 around to 4, they don't quite touch the top line. The G, the O, the Q, and the S. And then the ones that start with a line are all mentioned right here, so they're going to be close to the letter. And notice that they're single strokes. Every one of these letters begins at the top. None of the letters begins at the bottom. The J, some people put that little line up there, some don't. I like it, so it's up to you. And then the ones that start with a line that's not straight down is the VWX, the VWXY, and the Z right there. Again, I want you to, these are a bunch of words that you can use to help kids develop their practice. They can actually practice copying these words, but listen close. Make sure, like if they spell the word bed, make sure they look at the word bed, and then when they write it, write B-E-D. You do not, any of these words, you do not want them writing a B, then look back and an E, and then look back and a D. That's not going to work. And that's why I think that when children learn to write the alphabet at 40 letters a minute in kindergarten, which by the way is blazing fast, but it obviously can be done because Bob Rose did an online study with some other teachers, and they were able to do it. And all the kids, I understand, that learn to write 40 letters a minute. By the way, when I get kids from the, sometimes I get pre-K and kindergarten kids that are already reading. I asked the parents, I said, well, how'd you teach them? And generally they look at me and say, well, I don't know, they just picked it up. Well, there's one common thread that I found out. Every parent told me that their kids knew the alphabet fluently at 3 years old. And believe it or not, if you look at it, there's a lot of phonics in the letter names. The B, B, the K, K. I could go on and with a whole bunch of them. Even the 4 vowels, A, E, I, O, U, that's the long sound, so that's the sound of the letter. So, and Marilyn Jagger Adams, by the way, in her great program, teaches the letter names, she teaches you, the kids, to know the letters, kind of using a little song, teaching the letters in order. She teaches the kids to write all the letters, and she uses that with a stroke approach. But then she teaches the long and the short sounds, not actually teaching them to read words, just teaching them. This is for pre-K, her program is. And she teaches the long vowels first because she says they're easier. And by the way, a lot of people don't know this, but there were some phonics programs that started with long vowels. The old open court before it was changed, and I think it was more effective, vastly more effective than the new one. Open court was one of the main ones that was long vowel first. The Stevenson program still teaches. Anyway, pressing on. My programs teach short vowels first, but here's some pangrams. These are sentences a pangram's a sentence that use all the letters of the alphabet, and I show how that you can determine the student's copying fluency. By the way, they should be able to, like kindergarten, should be able to copy the alphabet at 40 letters a minute. Write it from memory, but the copy speed's going to be slower. And these are from Stephen Graham. Did a study in 1998, he and some others. And this is the mean handwriting speeds for boys and girls in their study. And so I just put them in here as suggested. These are copy speeds. Their ability to write the alphabet should be way faster than these speeds, because it takes longer to copy something than it does to, but they shouldn't be copying letter by letter. And I'm not sure, but these speeds aren't actually probably a lot slower than what my students that learn with shortcut to handwriting be. The numbers, I'm going to let you read this. Notice the numbers start with, and when I do my video here shortly with the boy helping me, he's actually going to be doing this. We'll be doing the letters and numbers, and that may be a 15 or 20-minute video. It's going to go, not going to be long like this one. Here again, we have the numbers starting at 2 o'clock. The numbers that start with a line will set close to the letters. And so they have all the numbers, and it's really important. And here's my ending stuff. Little note from me and all the information from Marilyn, Jagger, Adams that we studied before and everything. So, okay, if I've accomplished my purpose, you've already clicked on the link down there at the bottom, because that's what this is all about. I want you to look at this, and I want you to think about using it as perhaps one of the superior, in spite of the fact that it's free, one of the superior handwriting programs available in America today. This is Don Potter signing off, wishing you all the best. Be sure and comment or hit the like button on this video.